Hello, everyone, and happy 4th of July. Hopefully, you enjoyed it. I'm recording this right after the 4th. I actually took a couple of weeks off of recording the podcast, so apologies if you were expecting an episode last week. I tried to do them bi weekly and just didn't kind of get to it. There was just so much going on, and that's why I wanted to record today's podcast because I have some really exciting updates, some life updates, some coaching updates, just a lot of cool things that I think will sort of allow me to serve you in a better way, in a deeper way. A lot of times, when we embark on these new journeys and whatnot, there's, for me at least, this asking of self of like, how can I really serve? How can I use the gifts that I have in a way that will help others? I've always worked in service to some extent. First as a teacher for 12 years. Prior to being a teacher, I always worked either as a nanny or with children. I've had jobs that were like 9 to 5s through the summer in office buildings and things of that sort, but it's just never been me. It's just never been the way I've been meant to work or be, really. And then after I taught, I became a pediatric speech therapist and worked on the medical side of that in an outpatient center and loved every minute of that, loved the families that I worked with, but especially the kids. The kids were really everything to me in so many ways. And it's interesting because one of my first updates or one of my first little announcements, it's not little really, but if you follow me on Instagram, you know this, but I recently stopped working in my conventional 9 to 5 job as a speech therapist at the Kaufman Children's Center. I absolutely loved my job. And I think sometimes when people say like, "Oh, I'm leaving my job because I feel this way or that way," and there are usually negative sort of associations made with it, but in my case it didn't feel that way. It just felt like there was a completion because I was ready to take the work through the parenting reframe, through coaching, through connecting with so many of you, through my writing and the podcast and so many different avenues, videos. I just knew it was time to really jump into it full time and to really give it all of my attention, all of my energy. And unfortunately, I couldn't do both at the same time. It was becoming harder and harder, especially as this space, the reframing space, grew. It became more and more challenging. And so with that, I had to make the really, really tough decision probably 6 months ago. I was really sitting with this, and then I gave a lot of time to my employer, who really is such a mentor to me and has taught me so much, and I learned so much, and to the people that I've worked with who were so incredible. Like, I just wish for everyone in their lives to have experiences that I have had, in the sense that I've worked with people who have held me, supported me, built me up, allowed me to see my gifts, allowed me to have a faith in myself that maybe I didn't have. They really just cultivated this strength in me. And for that, I will be eternally grateful. You know who you are if you're listening to this. But for that, I just feel so blessed. And so, with that sort of heavy heart, I decided that it was time to kind of put an ending to that chapter and to start something new. So it's felt all the things. I felt excited. I felt scared. I felt nervous. I felt sheer joy at times, and just being able to get my time back. I think that was the hardest thing. I was working with a spiritual mentor of mine, and he was telling me that, if you aren't careful, you will always find yourself in these time poor situations, is the way he described it. And to really tap into my intuition and my inner knowing when I'm feeling out of balance. And that's what was beginning to happen. It felt like I was out of balance and I wasn't giving 100% to really anything because I just couldn't. I'm sure a lot of you can probably resonate with that. So I needed to sort of recalibrate. I needed to take some space. I needed to sit in stillness. I needed to meditate. These are all practices that I lean on all the time, daily, really. And I needed to really think about his words. And as I start this new chapter, as I look at new ways to deepen the way I can serve, I have to be really, excuse me, honest with myself about what that looks like, and how to not be time poor, and also how to be completely present and really in tune with each of you and what I can bring you. So with that, I have a really, really exciting offering. I have been sitting with this for a while, and it's really the result of many of you coming to me with this question and asking me if I can help you through it. And at first I thought, no, I'm just going to stick to parent coaching. Kids are my thing. I really understand them. It's where my, sort of degrees are, and I understand child development and developmental needs of children, emotionally speaking, physically speaking, all the milestones. We sort of fall into these labels, if you will, right? Like I went to school for this, so that means I am that, right? And so as I sat with your guys' ask, which was, how do you help? I need help, right? I know my kids and I know I can tune into things that my kids are going through, and there are probably different ways I could be showing up for them. But I'm actually in a challenge right now, and I really need a way to reparent myself. I really need the tools to guide me. And do you ever offer anything like that? Do you ever work specifically with just individuals about this idea of how do we parent ourselves? So I sat with it. I'm not really somebody who acts fast, I would say. I tend to sit with things. I let it kind of simmer and I decide, like, what do I really want to do with this? Is it for me or is it not for me? Is it something that I feel like I can really contribute to? And with that, with time, I sort of really, really meditated on it and sat with it. And now I know for certain that I am ready to offer a new type of coaching. This will be in addition to parent coaching, and I'm going to describe the difference between the two. But I'm going to start offering life coaching sessions utilizing a parenting process, a very specific parenting process. This is actually what my book is about. And the process includes 5 critical tenets to living a more peaceful life with more joy, more contentment, more fulfillment. And it really gives you the tools to parent. Think of parenting as a verb, anything in life. Parenting is a life skill. So this life coaching looks at you, the individual, and it gives you the tools to parent parts of yourself that need parenting. So think maybe reparenting, healing, transforming certain traumas that might be keeping you stuck, maybe mindsets that are limiting you, maybe identifying with things that you no longer want to identify with. Maybe you're ready to embark on a new way of being and you just don't know how to get there. It's for anybody who feels stuck in any which way. That's what the life coaching is going to do. It's going to give you the tools so that you can address these challenges utilizing a parenting process. You're going to parent yourself through adversity. You're going to parent yourself through change. Parenting is a life skill. I'm sure many of you have probably said this. If you have children, you've probably said it's amazing that we need so much training for anything else in our lives, right? You need a certification for this, a license for this, a degree for this. But the hardest job in the world, right, raising a child comes with no instruction manual, comes with no directions. And all it is a lot of people sharing their opinions. Certainly there are things we can be reading and doing. But at the end of the day, the parenting experience is really unique and nuanced, and it's layered and it's complex and it's all these things. So at its core, it's really a spiritual process. It is a process of unlocking more of yourself, growing yourself, and continuing to do the work. So for me, parenting is a way to bring yourself back to peace, to bring yourself back to joy, to fulfillment, to contentment, to presence. And so I am offering life coaching for individuals. By the way, you don't have to have children. In fact, I have been quietly doing this for some time because people who understand my, let's say, intuitive gifts have known this about me, and they have called on me multiple times to help them. And so I have. And in doing so, I've realized that this is something I'm ready to share with everyone. And many of the people I've worked with are not parents. They don't have kids. We have worked on the idea of reparenting themselves. We have worked on how to parent something into the world. Think to yourself, if you are a business owner, if you are trying to create something, if you're trying to pursue some type of creative endeavor, that requires a parenting way to get it into the world, to birth this into the world. We don't always have to think of parenting as raising a child. While that's the conventional understanding that we have of parenting, I want us to broaden that definition. I want us to take that and to make it bigger. And I want us to think of what are the ways we can parent ourselves back to a place of wholeness, back to a place of healing, of knowing, of trusting ourselves, of growing ourselves, of expanding, right? There are so many great things we can get out of it. This particular form of parenting that I'll talk about in just a second really hones in on this idea of 5 really specific tenets that have guided me, that have allowed me to grow in all the ways that I've grown. It's allowed me to sort of constantly find myself in a state of peace despite what's happening around me. I am constantly asked by people, have you always just been calm? Are you always just calm? And the truth is I don't know the answer to that. And I don't know if people just think I was born calm. I might have some sort of natural disposition toward being calm. But the truth is I cultivate this energy. I work on being really steady and present. I have a lot of practices that I put in place that allow me to be really, really still and quiet and hold a really safe space for people. It is one of the ways in which I know that I can support others, is in my ability to really listen, attune, get really still and clear about what it is that I think you need. And I can also reflect back to you in a very loving way the steps that I believe will guide you through your process, because we all have our own way. And these 5 tenets are the same things that I used when I parented my kids, when I parented myself through the multiple changes I've gone through in my life, the hard times, the good times. So briefly, I will touch on all 5 tenets, but if you're interested in learning more and if what I'm saying right now is resonating with you, if you go to the show notes, you can book a free 20-minute discovery call with me. And let's talk about if this life coaching, this utilizing this parenting process for yourself is what you need. Again, this is more individual self-focused. The parent coaching, which will still always be there, it's always going to stay. That is more child-centered. That's going to be about your child, about you, about that connection, how I can support you with your child's developmental needs. The life coaching, we can call it reframing life, is the way we parent ourselves. It's the work we have to do on our inside. That's the piece of it that we really want to look at. But anyways, back to what I was mentioning about discovery call. You can book a free discovery call. Let's chat. There are 2 ways to work with me regarding the life coaching. One is a one-time session for an hour. And I don't do this in parent coaching. I only work with parents for 2 months at a time. But the life coaching will be a little different. So if you have a specific challenge that you really want to address and talk to me about, and you feel like, God, this is just the one thing that keeps getting in my way, or I just can't seem to work through this, it just shows up and shows up, go ahead and book a call. And that's going to be a one-time session, and I'll teach you the tenets and how to use them. And you'll walk away with a protocol so that you know what to put into practice the next time this challenge or this bump in the road arises. The other way is we can work together for a longer period of time, and that's where the real transformation happens. That's where the real shifts are made, so that you can really tune into what you're being called to do, what healing needs to be done, what work needs to be done. And with me as your guide, I'm really just helping you self-heal, self-discover, work through the things you need to work through, tend to the things that you need to tend to. But we need support. We need people. I have always worked with mentors. I have always had a spiritual coach. I have always had somebody that I can call. I've always looked to somebody else to expand me. I think it's really, really important. So again, that's going to be in the show notes, but you can book a free call and I can kind of guide you through what I think might be the best next step. And I'd be so excited to work with you. I am only opening 4 spots for the life coaching. I know that seems like, why are you doing it if you're only opening 4? The reason being is because I'm completely full with parent coaching. And back to what I was mentioning at the top of the podcast, I have to be really careful about not being time poor again. It's very easy for me to get caught up in the pattern of doing and giving and serving and running myself pretty thin. And that's sort of been my pattern for a long time. And I'm seeing things differently now. And I'm realizing that I can give more of myself if I am more conscientious of the way I am using my time, how intentional I am with my time. So because of the parent coaching commitments that I have made, the commitments that I've made to certain paid partnerships that are really in alignment with my messaging, and I love the values that they have, and really opening up this new space for the life coaching, I think it's really important that I be mindful of that time poor piece. So 4 spots. Don't wait. If you're like, oh, I just really, really wish I could ask her this, book the call. Let's chat. I'm really here to hold that space for you and to listen. So the 5 tenets before I let you go are, number 1, I will teach you how to master the pause. You will no longer be reactive in your life This is a critical piece. Some of the clients that I've already worked with have given me feedback and said, the minute I learned to pause, I started to be a witness in my own life. I started to see the things I was doing. I started to see the fears that I was projecting onto others and to self. I started to see the way my actions were contributing to some of the challenges, conflicts, situations that I kept running up against. It changed everything. And I can tell you from my own personal experience, when I began to pause, just pausing changed the trajectory of almost every relationship in my life. It changed the way I proceeded. It changed the way I saw things. My perspective was different. It's a critical skill. It sounds simple in nature, but it is the hardest to do. So I will guide you through tools, through regulation tools, self-regulation tools, regulating your nervous system. There is a lot to it. But once you get a handle of how to master that pause, it will just change. I mean, I hate to sound so big and grand, but it will change everything. The next tenet out of the 5, so I've given you one. Number 2 is practicing stillness. Now, I will say, I do not formally meditate in a conventional way. For me, meditation has to be somewhat somatic, meaning I have to be doing while meditating, which seems counterintuitive to some extent. Also seems like that goes against what meditation is. But stillness for me can be cultivated anytime. Stillness isn't necessarily going into a meditation room, lighting candles, having the correct pillow. I think sometimes we can get really stuck in the aesthetics that we see online, and we're like, that's what I need if I have to meditate correctly. And there's a correctness to it, is sort of what we tell ourselves, and that can deter a lot of people. Stillness for me can be sometimes sitting and breathing. And when I'm breathing, I am looking at my inhales and exhales. So I'm inhaling and then I'm exhaling always longer. If you can hold that exhale longer, it is unbelievable how quickly it regulates your nervous system, releasing more carbon dioxide, and holding on to oxygen is going to be so beneficial to your body, your brain, so many different kind of sciencey type things that happen when we do this. So breath work is certainly one way to cultivate stillness. I read a lot of spiritual books and things that help me see the world and understand the world in a deeper way. Sometimes I listen to a guided meditation, but every single morning, I do not look at my phone for the first hour, and I do something to cultivate stillness, something that is very, very still. I never turn the TV on. I don't ever watch the news in the morning. I don't read an email first thing in the morning. I just simply don't let that into my space. How I ground, how I anchor is really critical to my day. And so stillness is one of the best things. It also, and this will get to one of the other tenets, it's where I really get my intuitive nudges. It's where I hear the messages I'm meant to hear. It's where I get those, what I call downloads or hits. You have to really get good at quieting the noise and listening and going within. And that's hard to do. Our world is very, very noisy. It's very busy. If you're listening to this and you have young children and you're like, an hour, I get it. I did not do this when my kids were younger. I cultivated stillness in different ways, and I can talk to you about that too. But you have to think about the context of your life too and what's going to fit and what's going to work. The third tenet is honoring simplicity. Simplicity is everything. When you are going through something, often the solution, often the way through is simple. It is our complex way, it is our insecurities that we bring to it that often result in more chaos, more misunderstanding. It is our perception, our fear-based thoughts, our limiting beliefs that can tend to make things harder than they need to be. But simplicity, when you are practicing stillness, when you are mastering the pause, all of a sudden you start to simplify your life because you get really clear on what matters and what doesn't. You start to realize pretty quickly what's my problem and what isn't, what's for me to solve and what's for me to hold back and watch. Simplicity, both physical simplicity, right? Like our spaces, it's really, really important. But I was working with a client recently and he was talking to me a lot about some of the mental load that he has. And in his case, we put a protocol together where his simplicity was simply in unloading the mental load, right? Decluttering his mental load, giving himself the space to sort of stop and better witness those thoughts and that narrative that he had going on. So again, you want to think about what it is that's sort of taking up a lot of space in your life and where can we honor simplicity. The fourth tenet is embracing change. This is the hardest for me and always has been, but I've honored it. When I stopped my teaching job after 12 years, I loved teaching. I've never left a job jaded, negative, hating it, wanting out. I've never felt that way. And it's because I have honored the idea that I have to keep growing, I have to keep changing, I have to keep stepping into new arenas. It's the only way I will expand. It's the only way I will continue to cultivate what it is that I'm meant to cultivate. So when we don't honor change, we stay safe, we stay small, we hide. Instead, we can sit with these things. We can sit with this idea of like, oh, what would it feel like? And again, in my coaching practice that I've been doing with the clients that I've been working with, we lean into this. I'm not going to give you the biggest change to do right away, right? But we're going to lean into some small changes and just sit with that discomfort. What does it feel like? What did you see? What did you learn? Even the simplest thing, walking a different trail than you normally do, stepping into some type of uncertainty and see how you feel. There are a lot of different ways we can play with this, but embracing change is critical. And the last tenet that will help you unlock inner peace, eternal wisdom, a state of contentment at all times is trusting your intuition. Now, all of these tenets are deeply connected, meaning I can't trust or listen to my intuition if I don't cultivate stillness. I can't access my intuition if I'm unwilling to practice pausing. I can't practice intuition if I can't honor simplicity. When I embrace change, my intuition says, good, you're trusting me, I'll share more. So again, these are tools that help us build a deeper life, a more expansive life. They are just as critical if you are parenting a child. The 5 that I just listed are really, really important. And I can do a whole other podcast on how that works from a parenting lens. But again, for today's podcast, I wanted to share this new offering with you because again, these are the tools that will help you parent yourself. So let's do this. Let's grow ourselves. Let's reparent the parts of ourselves that we need. I am so incredibly at peace and excited to offer this to you. Again, if this sounds like something that sounds right for you in your life right now, there's nothing to lose. You can just book a free call and chat with me. And by the way, and you know this if you've booked a discovery call with me for parent coaching, if I don't think I'm your person, I will tell you. I will tell you. I am very honest about this. I in no way want to serve somebody who I know doesn't need me or I am not their person. I will guide you in a different direction lovingly, but I will let you know if it's not me too. But again, this is my new offering. This is my new gem, and I'm really, really excited. I'm going to do some writing about it, so make sure that you're on my Substack and maybe some more videos, and let's just see where it takes us. Let's lean into this together. So book that call. Go to the discovery call page. You'll see it in the show notes. And book that 20 minutes and let's just chat and let's see if this is the right thing for you. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking this time to listen to me talk about life changes and updates and all the things. Thank you for the constant support. This community means everything to me. And I know that we're going to grow this community together. And I'm excited to do this with you and alongside you. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I cannot wait to connect even further.